Yes, let's talk about hockey, the show that journeys through the history of the sport of ice hockey from its disputed origins to the game we see today. After adding 5 new franchises to the league in the early 90s, the NHL looked to expand again as the decade closed and the new millennium began. One of the last two 90s expansion teams was set up in Atlanta in 1999 and has since relocated to Winnipeg. But a year before Atlanta's team hit the league, another expansion club was established in the heart of the Music City, the Nashville Predators.
Dating back to 1962, professional hockey in Nashville started with the Dixie Flyers of the Eastern Hockey League. The Flyers would last for 9 seasons and win back-to-back EHL championships in 1966 and 1967 before folding in 1971. After that, shorter-lived semi-pro teams like the South Stars of the early 80s and the Knights, Nighthawks, and Ice Flyers of the early and mid-90s kept hockey's presence in Nashville. At one point in 1995, an offer was even made to move the New Jersey Devils to Nashville. But after that deal fell through, the NHL still began looking to Nashville for potential expansion. 2 years later, in June of 1997, the league would grant conditional franchises to Nashville and 3 other cities, with Nashville being scheduled to enter the NHL first since they already had a completed arena. By August, former Washington Capitals general manager David Poile and Portland Pirates coach Barry Trotz were brought on as the new franchise's first GM and head coach respectively, and a month later owner Craig Leopold and team president Jack Diller unveiled the team's logo at a press conference. The saber-toothed cat logo was made in reference to a partial Smilodon skeleton found beneath downtown Nashville during building construction in 1971, and after a fan vote, the team took the name of the Predators. In the expansion draft, Nashville would grab a few promising young players like former Detroit center Greg Johnson and goaltenders Mike Dunham and Thomas Vokoun. But it would be through trade deals that they added more experienced talent such as center Cliff Ronning and winger Sergei Krivokrasov. With their roster now set, the Predators played their first game on October 10, 1998 at their home rink in Nashville against the Florida Panthers. The Predators would fail to even get on the board in this game, losing by a score of 1-0. 3 nights later, they would correct that against Carolina, as Andrew Burnett scored the club's first ever goal, and 2 others would join him on the score sheet in what would also be the club's first ever win. Ronning, Johnson, and Krivokrasov would be the offensive leaders on the Predators this first season, tallying over 45 points each. However, with few other players putting up any significant offensive numbers, Nashville was only able to manage a 28-47-7 record to finish last place in their division and second from last in their conference. Over the next 4 years, the Predators would continue to finish at or near the bottom of their division and conference, with the exception being the 2000-2001 season when they came within 10 points of qualifying for the playoffs. That year, Cliff Ronning was again the team's point leader with a franchise-high 62 points, while goaltender Mike Dunham ranked 4th in the league for save percentage. During the 2002-2003 season, Nashville would deal Dunham to the Rangers, and Thomas Vokoun would take over as the starting netminder. In his second year as the starter, Vokoun would rank in the league's top 5 for wins, shots faced, and saves, while winger Scott Walker set a new franchise record with 67 points, and rookie defenseman Marek Zidlitsky had a 50-plus point season of his own.
This year, the Predators put together their first winning record of 38-29-11 to beat out Edmonton for the final playoff spot in the Western Conference. In their first playoff series, they faced the top-ranked Detroit Red Wings. Nashville would lose the first 2 games of the series in Detroit, but when the series shifted to their home rink, Vokoun only allowed 1 goal to get past him, and the Predators were able to even the series at 2 games apiece. However, the Red Wings responded in kind, allowing only 1 goal in Game 5 and shutting Nashville out in Game 6 to eliminate the Predators.
After the league resumed play following the 2004-2005 lockout, Nashville received a huge boost to their offense when they signed former Mighty Ducks captain Paul Kariya. The Predators then jumped off to their best start in franchise history, becoming only the 4th team in NHL history to go 8-0 in their first 8 games. Korea would set new franchise marks with 54 assists and 85 points, while Vokun would break his old record with 36 wins, and the team as a whole would have its first 100-point season with a final record of 49-25-8. In the playoffs this year, Nashville was the favored team in their opening round series against San Jose, since they not only had home ice advantage in the series, but also boasted the league's best home record of 32-8-1 during the regular season. The Predators would manage to win Game 1 by a score of 4-3, but after that they were unable to stop the Sharks' Patrick Marleau, who scored 7 goals over the next 4 games to lead San Jose to a 4-1 series win. Over the next 4 years, Nashville would continue to try to improve their roster by not only acquiring bigger names like Jason Arnott and Peter Forsberg, but also building through the draft with players like Patrick Hornqvist, Shea Weber, Ryan Suter, and Pekka Rinne. While the Predators would be good enough to make the playoffs in 3 of these 4 seasons, they would be first-round knockouts each time. In the 2010-2011 season, Nashville again made it to the playoffs thanks to the 196 combined points of Martin Erat, Sergei Kostitsyn, Shea Weber, and Patrick Hornqvist, as well as goaltender Pekka Rinne ranking among the top 3 netminders in the league for save percentage and goals against average. This year, they opened the playoffs against a new opponent, the Anaheim Ducks. The teams would split the first 4 games, but in Game 5, the Ducks looked to take control of the series as they carried a 3-2 lead late in the 3rd period. However, with 36 seconds left, Shea Weber scored to tie the game, and then 1 minute and 57 seconds into overtime, Jared Smithson netted the game winner. In Game 6, the teams were deadlocked at 2 entering the 3rd, but a goal by Nick Spaulding early in the period gave Nashville the lead, and an empty netter by David Legwand with 10 seconds left sealed it to give the Predators their first playoff series win. In Round 2, Nashville had to contend with the league's best team from Vancouver. After 4 games, the Predators found themselves trailing 3-1 in this series, but thanks to 2 third-period goals by Joel Ward, Nashville was able to extend the series with a 4-3 win in Game 5. Unfortunately, though, the Predators were only able to get 1 goal past Roberto Luongo in Game 6, as Vancouver took the series with a 2-1 win.
Even though Nashville would return to the second round of the playoffs in the subsequent 2011-2012 season, they would again fall short, this time in 5 games to the Coyotes. Then, over the next 2 years, the Predators would sink into a slump and miss the playoffs in both seasons. After these 2 disappointing years, Nashville saw the departure of 2 longtime components of the team as David Legwand, the club's original draft pick, was traded to Detroit, and Barry Trotz's coaching contract was not renewed, prompting him to depart to Washington to coach the Capitals.
To replace Trotz, former Carolina head coach Peter Laviolette was brought in May of 2014. In Laviolette's first 2 seasons, Nashville would acquire players like James Neal and Ryan Johansson to boost their offense, while some of the team's younger players like Philippe Forsberg and Roman Josi helped lead the club back into the playoffs both years. The first playoff run would end with a 6-game loss to the Blackhawks, while the second year's playoff run went as far as a 7th game in Round 2 before the Predators were eliminated by San Jose. Even though each season was getting progressively better, the team's management felt that they were still missing something. So, in June of 2016, Captain Shea Weber was traded to the Canadiens for all-star defenseman P.K. Subban. Despite this high-profile trade, Nashville finished 2 points lower than their previous year's record, but it was still good enough for the second wildcard spot in the playoffs. This matched them against the top-ranked Blackhawks in the opening round. Rinne would stop 59 shots in Games 1 and 2 to shut Chicago out both times. In Game 3, the Blackhawks looked to get back on track, but 2 third-period goals by Philippe Forsberg followed by Kevin Fiala's overtime winner instead put Chicago in a deeper hole. Nashville made sure that there was no coming back either, as Rinne only allowed 1 goal in Game 4, while the Predators netted 4 of their own to become the first 8th-seeded team to sweep a number 1 seed in NHL history. In round 2, 2 of Nashville's defensive core, Ryan Ellis and PK Subban, led the Predators to a 3-1 series lead over the Blues after the first 4 games. St. Louis would extend the series with a 2-1 win in Game 5, but in Game 6, Roman Josi, Ryan Johansson, and Kalle Järnkrok would each score to lift Nashville past St. Louis and into the conference finals for the first time in the club's history. In round 3 against the Anaheim Ducks, the first 4 games would be displays of defense and goaltending, as 3 games were decided by a single goal. Entering Game 5, the series was even at 2 games apiece. Anaheim would score first a little over 12 minutes into the game, but after the Ducks' goaltender went down with an injury near the end of the first period, Nashville would score 3 to take the series lead. And then in Game 6, a hat-trick by Colton Sissons punched the Predators' ticket to their first ever Stanley Cup Finals appearance. Here, they would face the defending Cup champs from Pittsburgh. Though they would battle back to even the series after falling behind 2-0 to the Penguins, Nashville would be shut out in Games 5 and 6 as Pittsburgh ultimately completed their bid to repeat as champions. Having come so close to the Cup after all of these years, the Predators now look to take those last few steps that will finally get them to the goal that every NHL club strives towards.